guys, Whispering Tactician back again with another video, and today we are going to be looking at exactly how Chelsea beat Arsenal in the Premier League. A very interesting game. There's so many components to break down, and as you can see by the title, LUKAKU was the key, but we'll analyze exactly how this was, and of course there was a lot of things that were happening tactically throughout the game. However, before we do move on, hit the like button, comment down below what you thought of the game if you watched it, and of course subscribe. So the teams were, as you can see on the screen, Mendy, Aspilicueta, Christensen, Rudiger, Alonso, Kovacic, Jorginho, James, Mount, Lukaku and Havertz in the formation 3-4-3, you could say. And the formations in this game are very important. Just to break it down exactly what happened. And as you can see on the screen, the Arsenal formation was a 4-2-3-1 with Leno, Mari, Holding, Cedric, Tierney, Xhaka, Lokonga, Smith Rowe, Saka, Pepe and Martinelli playing. Now I'm going to put both the teams on the same screen just so you can compare the formations and the players, but both teams fielded a strongest starting 11. I think both teams, Chelsea were the favourites, but both teams felt they could actually get something from the game. And starting off with the first piece of analysis, Chelsea were pressing their centre backs from literally the first minute, and as you can see there, Kovacic and Mount have kind of pushed up. Generally Mount was kind of together with the front two, but we'll analyse that as the game goes on. And when we're looking at Arsenal's, they set up in a 4-2-3-1. You can kind of see the four players up top, one player as a striker and three players behind him. Throughout the game, Chelsea had chances, of course. Now Arsenal at times in the game played with a mid block, and mid to low block. As you can see, you've got everyone on the edge of the box basically, or just in front of it, defending the area. This was kind of easily broken at times by Chelsea. Now this is just in the first few minutes, and Lukaku was the key to doing this, and that's why I titled the video about Lukaku being the key, because Lukaku essentially pinned the Arsenal defence, or Pablo Mari in this instance, because he was basically the focal point. But ever since he's left the Premier League, it seems like he's got a lot better at that, so he can play that role a bit better. So Lukaku was essentially the focal point, and he absolutely dominated his physical battles. Now looking at some of the other issues with the play, Chelsea were getting a lot of space down the right hand side. Okay, this is something that I picked up on very early on in the game. And Tierney, again, you can kind of see he's close to Reece James, but not very close. There's a lot of space in behind anyway for the ball, and it was a very important thing throughout the game. Arsenal also had a few chances of their own. There was times where Pepe early doors was driving into space that was left behind by Chelsea players, but not a lot could be done at this point in time because their attacks weren't potent enough, and Chelsea got back to recover really quickly. So now let's look at how the first goal came about. So remember when we were speaking about the space on the right hand side? Well, that was essentially what caused the goal, and we'll look at exactly why there was so much space on the right hand side. I've obviously marked up on the image Reece James, and now you can see Reece James is kind of by himself, not picked up by Saka, Xhaka or Tierney. He's within that space. It's not really dangerous at this point in time, but there's a reason for it. Lukaku gets the ball played into him by Kovacic, a brilliant ball by Kovacic, and then Lukaku plays the ball back. However, it starts to become a problem now. Why? Because the ball's advanced further and Reece James is still in a lot of space. Now Kovacic gets the ball back and he realises that Reece James is in a lot of space. So what's the logical thing to do, especially if you're a good player, is to just play the ball over the top into the space. And at this point in time, the tactic to, come inside, look how congested everyone is, right? It starts to fail because you have someone who's free. And again, we'll analyze exactly why this is in just a minute. I'll use a little graphic to explain it. But Kovacic plays a beautiful ball into Reece James. Reece James can either shoot or pass it across. Lukaku's kind of steaming in at this point in time. He finds Lukaku in the middle and Lukaku scores to make it 1-0. And at this point in time, Chelsea were all over Arsenal. They were all over Arsenal because tactically Tuchel got it a lot better, a lot more spot on, right? But we're going to analyse exactly why there was so much space on the right hand side, on Tierney's left. Now, I was thinking, well, why didn't Tierney just go with Reece James? Well, there's a very good answer for that actually. When you look at the structure of the Chelsea forward line, their three plays are extremely narrow. So because they're so narrow, whenever the ball is played into the forward line, you have essentially 3v2, the centre backs versus the three players attacking that I've kind of highlighted. And I'm just gonna, if I can now, I'll choose that colour. But yeah, Lukaku was basically pinned to Mari, as we said before. So Mari was with Lukaku most of the game. That leaves Mount in kind of like a free space. So what happens is, because Mount is kind of floating in that space, should he go to Reece James or Mount? The most logical thing to do, especially when the ball is in the centre, is to move over. Right, so he's moving over to Mount. So now Mount is his man. He's got Mount. But that leaves a big problem because look at Reece James in all of that space. Now you think, well, why isn't Saka tracking him? Well, that's where the limitations of the system that Arsenal played originated from. Saka was part of the players that were the initial line of defence, and once that was broken, Reece James was free to roam through that right hand side, especially since Tierney was tucked in and had a bunch of space on the right hand side. And as you can see, as per the goal, Kovacic picks the ball up, and because Reece James has so much, I'll highlight it now, but he has so much space, so much, which is very criminal. I actually analysed the game. You could see in the highlights even, right? There was so much space, but I was like, well, how come? And it's literally because of the tactical setup of how Chelsea played. And as you can see, a simple ball into Lukaku and it's a finish. But it all comes from the setup that Chelsea had. Their three plays, their narrow three plays up top created that. And Alonso was also running in behind a lot of the time as well. So that also created another problem for Arsenal. Arsenal themselves, they tried to attack through the right hand side, and you can kind of see the narrow three again. Now this is in a bit of a defensive shape, but Tierney was always willing to go forward. He always wanted to exploit the Chelsea right hand side. crosses across. Tini was very enthusiastic throughout the game as well. In going forward, defensively, I don't know if it was his fault per se, but again, you can see there were a lot of space on the right hand side. Again, Arsenal, they had a few chances where they broke and they caught Chelsea out of shape and out of transition, but they didn't really make a lot of it during the game. Chelsea did make a lot of their chances, however, they were breaking a lot into space again. Once the first goal came, a lot of the time, Arsenal were trying to throw plays forward a bit, but again, we're gonna analyze this a bit later. But that's how the second goal came about. Chelsea, again, as you can see there, a lot of space leaves the wide forward free, and Lukaku, you can see there, if the cross is good, then it's potentially a goal, but the cross wasn't good at this point in time. Arsenal, again, they're trying to press. They try to change their tactics, try to hunt for the ball, but I think Chelsea, they just played out of the press so seamlessly, and that meant that, you know, a lot of the time Arsenal weren't able to actually get a hold of the ball to start their attacks or to, you know, nip the ball off Chelsea in those positions. Chelsea were just very tidy with the ball, efficient. So let's analyse the second goal now. And the second goal comes from just a bit of good interplay down the left hand side. Alonso interchanges with Havertz, and Alonso is through. Now you can see a lot of space in between them. Lukaku kind of lets it run past him, and Mason Mount gets onto the end of it. Again, you can see that same setup. Reece James is in tons of space. All Mason Mount has to do is pass the ball into the space, and Reece James has can have an effective shot off on goal. And Reece James does have an effective shot on goal, and it goes in, and it's 2-0. But you know, that's all just from, you know, the first 30 minutes. A lot of the mistakes happened in the first half. The second half, things cooled down a bit more, but Reece James makes it 2-0. And yeah, it was only until the second half where things started to change a bit. Another bit of analysis in the first half. This I'm trying to highlight exactly. You know, this was very easy for Chelsea, right? Mao picks up the ball, and he's got a defender in front of him. He's trying to weave his way into the box. He gets into the box and he crosses it in, and I think Havertz gets on the end of it. Lukaku's also in there. Chelsea had a few chances. I couldn't really, when analysing the game, find a lot of chances for Arsenal until the second half, because the second half is where they tried to change things a bit. Saka had a shot off on goal. It wasn't so dangerous, but Mendy had to tip it over again. Aubameyang came on. He made a few runs in behind. He was a bit dangerous, but at the end of the day, Chelsea again, they had a lot more attacks than Arsenal, and Lukaku was absolutely key in a lot of the things that Chelsea did, because of his hold-up play, because of his clinical finishing. And as you can see there, Mount puts in a ball for Lukaku, and Lukaku, it was a brilliant header, by the way, but it was just an even better save from Bernd Leno. And yeah, Chelsea just ran riot in this game, unfortunately. I'm looking forward to see how Lukaku gets on in the Premier League again. I think he'll be an absolutely fantastic addition. I think he's been a very underrated striker just because he's not been in the Premier League for a couple of years. He's one of the world's best, and Chelsea will love to have him. He was fantastic in his game today. But that is how Chelsea beats Arsenal. let me know if you watched the game. Let me know what you thought of the game as well. And yeah, I guess I'll catch you on the next video.